Well, thanks for having me as always. The short answer here is the fact that the ICC is largely looked at as the international court when dealing with international crises and justice. It is very obvious that when the ICC issued the arrest warrants for humanitarian crimes and crimes against humanity against several folks inside the Israeli government, including Benjamin Netanyahu. Uh, Everybody knows the close relationship between Tel Aviv and Washington, the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. They have very similar styles of governing. And as a result, I think it was to protect our ally as well as to send a statement that, Donald Trump and the United States government under his administration feels like there really isn't a need. We'll be the ones to determine justice and what's best for the U.S. Is it a smart move? No, it's not. And as we've seen, this is going to cause a lot of tension between our Western allies and Washington.
Mhm. So the ICC is investigating Israeli leaders, but also Hamas officials. Yet Trump's sanctions seem to be targeting only the court's probe into Israel. What message does this send about the U.S. foreign policy?
Well, as you pointed out, there's investigations regarding Hamas leadership, and there's arrest warrants for several members of Hamas leadership that, as a result of the October 7th tragedy and the horrific events there. At the same time that they've also indicted and put out arrest warrants for several senior leaders in Tel Aviv in the Israeli government. The message it sends is that, while the U.S. poses itself internationally as an equal and fair administrator of justice, that you've heard Donald Trump talk about a country of justice and a country of laws. It seems very, very visible today that the Trump administration, particularly when it comes to international courts and the recognition of their jurisdiction and their sovereignty as a judicial branch, there's no question that the Trump administration feels that they don't have the best interest of the United States legally in an international forum, and the U.S. will play by its own rules.
Mhm. The U.S. will play by its own rules. Okay. The Netherlands and Germany have pledged to shield ICC officials from these sanctions. Could this lead to a legal dispute between the U.S. and EU nations?
I think it's unclear. This is untested waters. This is someplace that the United States and the federal government here in Washington have never really seen before. So this is going to be a new test for the ICC and the relationship between Washington and our allies abroad.
Mhm.
The critical thing here that we have to look at is that if our allies, for example, if Germany starts dealing with sanctioned individuals from the ICC, that could put Germany in legal jeopardy of its dealings here in the United States. Same thing with the Netherlands, and we've also seen indications that the United Kingdom, France, and Italy will also not adhere to the sanctions requirements put forth by the United States. And that could put their relationships and their individuals that do have contact and direct relationships with members of the ICC, that could put their relationships here in jeopardy. This could be not only a very big legal challenge, but this could be a very huge diplomatic challenge at the same time.
Hmm. So the ICC has vowed to continue its work despite U.S. pressure. Do you see this escalating into a full-scale diplomatic crisis between Washington and its European allies?
Well, I mean, look, the ICC does not need the blessing of the United States to continue its work. This is an independent judicial body recognized by just about every sovereign country around the globe. The reality is that the U.S., although a major superpower, is not the only one. Now, the issue becomes is, there's always been questions of, Russia does not really recognize, and they've had the same stance that Donald Trump has taken. Vladimir Putin has been adamant that the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction over him, and how he sees fit to, in lack of a better term, rule Russia. President Xi has had tensions with the ICC, and the Chinese Central Communist Party's had tensions. The more of the big economic superpowers that start defying the court orders of the ICC, some legal experts I've talked to have said that this could call into question the legitimacy of the ICC. If you have the major global superpowers acting on their own without any regard for the jurisdiction and the sovereignty of the ICC, how much legitimacy are they going to have when they really do have to invoke arrest warrants and set down judicial rulings?
So, well, human rights groups have strongly criticized these sanctions. They said that they could embolden authoritarian regimes to retaliate against international courts. Do you see this as a dangerous precedent for global justice?
Absolutely. We've seen it with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has, a red notice from Interpol on him.
But not on Benjamin Netanyahu? On Putin, but not on Netanyahu?
What I'm saying is we've seen this when we talk about the large economic powers of the world. You talk about, China, Russia, and obviously the United States. When you look at the big three superpowers and you see Vladimir Putin, question the legitimacy of the ICC, there's arrest warrants on him that he's disregarded. He's traveled, and the places where he's traveled have disregarded it. Yeah, the bottom line here is, yes, this is going to, as I stated before, create a legal crisis and a diplomatic crisis, not just between the U.S. and our Western allies, but this is going to create a very large global legal challenge that needs to be addressed. We're at a point right now where, and this is just my opinion, we're at a point right now where the future of the ICC and the ICCJ itself are legitimately on the brink of not just relevance or not, but having a future. Is there going to be an ICC in the future? If the largest, most powerful nations in the world do not recognize the legitimacy or the authority of the ICC, then authoritarians are just going to go around saying, "Go ahead, put an arrest warrant on me." It's unenforceable.
Yes. Finally, Trump has framed these sanctions as defending U.S. sovereignty from foreign interference. Could this become a wider policy trend, with the U.S. rejecting other international institutions?
Well, we've already seen it. I mean, Donald Trump has been in office for less than a month, and since then we've seen him cut off foreign aid. We've seen him in the process of dismantling the U.S. Agency for International Development. We've also seen the big announcement regarding international organizations is that it's not only pulling out of the Paris Climate, but the big news is he's pulling out of the World Health Organization. There's concern in Washington amongst foreign policy advocates is, does he in fact withdraw from the United Nations? He's threatened it before. He may threaten it again. The question is, where does it stop? We're in a really, from a foreign policy aspect, from a foreign relations angle, we are in a very, very
dangerous situation. It's very dangerous, I think.